This week, we've gathered to talk about Joanie Loves Chachi. So get ready for the fawns because you're listening to a kind of garbage telesitting podcast.
It's a kind of.
Welcome, everyone, to Telesitting. Today, we're talking about Joanie Loves Chachi. I'm Adam Bishop, and as always, I'm joined by
Cody Andrews.
Later in this episode, we will have another special guest. I'll say his name. Our guest, Sam Tweedle, picked out a TV show for us to watch, and that is Joanie Loves Chachi. And he picked a specific episode, which is season 2, episode 1. We watched it. It's fucking horrible.
It's not bad.
No, you liar. It's bad.
It's bad. But no, it's not bad. It's very jarring, I think, to go back. And because this is
1970 something.
1970, but this was like formulaic television. Like this was how to make a show back in the 70s. Like nothing on this show was like cutting edge or anything like that. Like this is the format that they used, like filmed in front of a live studio. There's only like 2 or 3 set changes.
Yeah, the amount of times that they changed sets when they went back to the upstairs apartment, I'm like, oh, we're back here. I think there were 2. There were 3 sets. You had Joanie and Chachi's apartment. You had Al's
restaurant.
restaurant. Yep. And then you had the studio with the radio show, I guess, the radio station they went on, and that was it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because for what you're saying, like this was bad, or you didn't find this very enjoyable.
Nope.
I'm very curious to see in 40 years if somebody goes, because this was a big this was part of a family of like TV shows. Like this was a spinoff of Happy Days.
And how many spinoffs did Happy Days have?
Oh, a few. I'm sure Sam's gonna know each and every one.
I made notes of it. It has 7 different spinoffs.
Yes.
Which
I like
technically 5 because 2 of them are cartoon shows, but it's 7. But Sam will like deep dive us into this as well when he jumps on with us.
Yeah, and like it's wild, like because characters from the other shows would come and guest star on. Like this episode had Henry Winkler playing the Fonz, like coming to visit them for like no reason, and then just getting roped up into the A plot.
Yeah, if you don't know who Henry Winkler is, he was the coach from The Waterboy that Adam said.
God.
This is this is how I'm going to connect with people who might not know who he is as the Fonz, but I think everybody knows who the Fonz is. But he's the Waterboy coach.
So I think it's interesting if you take the formula for a TV show right now, and I think one of the big ones is the kind of like fake documentary.
Yeah, that's a lot of them.
So you have, but to the point where it doesn't make sense anymore, but the audience understands that by having characters, instead of giving characters inner monologue or anything like that, just literally taking a character out of the story and having them directly address the audience and like tell them what they're thinking. So there's The Office, Parks and Rec, Modern Family. Those are probably 3 of the biggest TV shows in the last couple of years as far as like sitcoms go. Like those were all huge TV shows. They all kind of follow that formula. So I think it's interesting as to like, what the hell are people going to look like? If someone watches one of those shows in 30 years, are they going to be like, I don't get it. Like, why are they acting like they're in a documentary, but it's never like Modern Family. It's never established they're in a documentary.
Yeah, well, even in The Office, they didn't until I think the last season, right?
Well, the joke was The Office. The joke of The Office was like in one of the last episodes, the documentary that they had been filming like actually airs. And it's like, it was just a joke for like what opened the door for that TV show. And then they strayed so far away from it. And then they just ended and they're like, haha, just kidding. We're coming all the way back. Like that was kind of a joke on The Office, but there's other shows like watch Parks and Rec, and it's like that show is not that it's a bad show, but like that show's insane for like, why are people like, why, like every joke is pull somebody into the hallway and then have them go, I didn't really mean that, or pull someone into the hallway and have them go, like say the punchline to the joke. It's very weird. And I think that's one of the reasons you didn't like this. is this was like a very popular format for a show back in the 80s, and like watching it now, it just like doesn't work.
No, we should plow through the segments of the show. It was a 25, I guess a 30-minute show minus the commercials, and not much really happens in this episode, which is bizarre as a season premieres.
Yeah.
So this episode starts with Joanie and Chachi playing a piano and singing together, with credits overlaying the screen, the actors who were later in the episode. I don't know if like it's different in every episode where they're just singing a song, because it seems like it's part TV show but part musical, not as hardcore as like the Monkees or S Club 7 was, but
Yeah.
there's enough singing. So apparently Joni's trying to get a job, and Chachi wanted to kiss her. They kept on pushing their faces together, and I'm like, oh, are they going to make out? But this is back in the 70s, so I don't think they're going to do this. And Chachi drops sheet music, and then they're trying to figure out which goes which, and they can't figure it out. And then the Fawn shows up, and then they tell them that they're going to go to Al's, and then they're at Al's, and Fonzie shows up again. And they go off for this interview, and they forget their tambourine. There's like a horrible fat joke in the middle of this episode with the one bandmate, and I'm just like, holy shit. And she tells her, I think it was her brother, it's like, oh, did like you thought your hamster died? It did die like under a truck. And I'm sitting there thinking, how the fuck did his hamster get it under a truck?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. So I'm just kind of looking up some information on it too. So the show came out in 82, but it's still set during the early 60s. So like this came out, I guess, well after Happy Days.
No, Happy Days was still going. And after this was canceled, Happy Days had a few more seasons afterwards too, which is insane.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking up Happy Days right now and trying to find out. Yeah. So this is a spin-off of Happy Days where it tries to like take place like this show kind of came out towards the end of Happy Days to like try to do something with it. And then it was set in the like the time period that Happy Days originated in. So like you have a show, Happy Days came out in the mid 70s, and it was about life. It was about like teenage life in the 60s, like the sitcom. And then by the time Joanie Loves Chachi comes out, they're like, well, it's set in the same time period. So you have like all these adult actors playing, like they're supposed to be playing like kids, which I thought was like the funniest thing to me was you have all these adults playing children.
Yeah, how old is the Fawn supposed to be? Because he looks pretty old in this. Like not as old as he does in the Waterboy, but like
Yeah, like it's I don't know, like it's very weird when you just take a show like this show, our Happy Days, I should say, is very famous for the fact that like it just kept spinning off different TV shows. So I'm just looking it up right now. So Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Lansky's Beauties, Mork and Mindy, Out of the Blue, Joanie Loves Chachi, The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, which was animated, and then Laverne and Shirley and the Fonz, which was animated. So like you keep, like you were saying, like you just keep taking all this stuff and like all these characters that are established, and you're like, well, let's just do something with them. And like it just seems like a very weird formula now.
even in this episode where they go for their interview and they start lying about how they're a family band so they can get the part because the radio station wants something new. They, like you were saying at the beginning, they wrote Fonzie in, they wrote their mom, the girl's mom in. I was gonna say Uncle Al. Chachi's dad, which is actually his stepdad, which I didn't know, gets offended when he's like, "Oh, he's not my dad." It's like the Fonz is my dad. So I was sitting there wondering, like, why is Al so upset? Like, this isn't a big deal. They just have to explain it to him. But then I was like, oh, he's Chachi's stepdad. So there could be like some kind of like not there's a connection issue with those two. But
Yeah.
at the end of this episode, they kind of like tell the ladies, like, oh, we lied, like we're not a family. They still get the job. And it was almost like an after school special. And in my notes, I just have written down at the end, like, this is horrible, more singing credits, and thank God I'm done.
Yeah, which I mean, this show only lasted 2 seasons, and the first season was like very short.
Yeah, the first season was 4 episodes written by the writers from Happy Days. And then the second season was 13 episodes written by brand new writers that didn't have that connection or that history with the characters and the TV show. And I think that's what contributed to the second season just sucking balls, because it didn't make sense. But even then, like, could the actors not contribute to stories, being like, this doesn't really make sense for my character? I know you're the writer, but like, they should have worked together. What's his name? Scott Baio? That's Chachi's
Yep.
name? Yeah, where Scott Baio was probably just like, money, 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 money.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't know if the premise was, because there was like a huge cast of characters in Happy Days. So I don't know if the premise was like some of these actors were like told, like, we're going to take your characters and like give them a spin-off. And then it was like, okay, like, this is kind of my chance to be more of the headline act, like the more of like the main credited star of a show versus, part of an ensemble cast. And maybe that was like what drew them all to it.
Yeah, I think that when you have that sense of camaraderie with all the actors and then the staff as well, that you want to keep on going. And this show was a victim of the success of another show. And when I was reading Scott Baio's comments on it, he even said that he wished that he didn't do this show until Happy Days was over. Because I don't know if he went back to Happy Days. That'll be a question that we can ask Sam. And Sam's going to have so much information that's going to be probably the biggest portion of this episode, is Sam coming in and just telling us like, okay, guys, this is Happy Days. It's amazing. This is Joanie Loves Chachi. It's a piece of shit. Fun fact, the first time I ever heard the phrase Joanie Loves Chachi, I'm going to assume that you know when it was.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Dodgeball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joanie Loves Chachi. I love that you got it. Oh, that's great.
Because that's like such a weird joke.
It's because
in Dodgeball, yeah. He says, "I love you,
Joanie." The girl, his girlfriend. Is it Justin Long? Or am I thinking of a different movie? Somebody yells to their girlfriend, "I love you, Joanie," and then Ben Stiller hucks a ball and goes, "Joanie loves Chachi."
Yeah, like it's something that dumb, but yeah, it was weird. Like, why would anyone in their right mind go back to revisit this?
Well, let's take a little break, and we're gonna jump Sam in here.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll be right back. Joining us finally is, I'm going to call you the Happy Days historian, Mr. Sam Tweedle. How are you?
I want to thank you so much for having me on the show, guys. I've been listening to your show at work during the current last two lockdowns, and I absolutely love the show.
Oh, you poor devil. All the horrible things we say, me mainly, but
I was going to say, Adam's been promising me that he just deletes these immediately.
Oh no. I've been binging through it, and it's been really great. So it's been giving me a lot of enjoyment. So it's great to be able to chat with you guys.
I think the first question that we both have for you is, why Joanie Loves Chachi?
Well, I got to tell you, so many reasons, absolutely so many reasons. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. One thing I noticed doing the show, I'm about 20 years older than you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that a lot of the stuff you guys do on the show, stuff that I was in university when it was on. So it's not stuff like, maybe I kind of knew what it was, but it was for kids, right? So a lot of the time where I didn't experience it. So I've been enjoying going back and watching some of this stuff on YouTube, especially. And my question is, how much do you guys know about Happy Days? I mean, is Happy Days and the different spin-offs, the quote unquote Marshall universe, is it something you guys know anything about or have ever, I don't know, seen?
I'll let Cody go first for this one.
I have seen clips of, like, I'm aware of like the actors from Happy Days.
Yeah.
I'm aware of like some of its cultural relevance. I know it's before my time, but I think most of what I know about Happy Days and like its spin-off universe is just like all kind of the weird, some of the weird little stories behind it, or just some of the spin-offs, like Robin Williams
in Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, he had a guest role playing, because he was kind of like a zany stand-up comedian.
That's right.
So they put him on the show just playing like this zany character, and then that just spun off into its own thing.
Yeah,
and there was a few things like that. So I'm aware that like Happy Days is kind of the hub for this whole like little 70s 80s television universe. But but I know what Joanie Loves Chachi is. I have never seen an episode until today when I sat down
most
and
people
watched
have
one.
it. Most people have it. People who remember what it is or were around for it generally have not seen it. And now I was born in 1975. And when Joanie Loves Chachi was on, I was 7 years old. But one of my earliest cultural memories as a child is Fonzie and Happy Days. I mean, you couldn't escape it in the 70s. It was the biggest franchise on television. I remember when now Happy Days lasted 11 seasons. Joanie Loves Chachi. Joanie and Chachi were spun off in their own sitcom for the 10th season. So they were in, all this, and it was very problematic for Happy Days, which I'm not going to bore you with at the moment, but I've been researching a book that I'm possibly going to write about the final 4 seasons of Happy Days. And a lot of TV stations actually stop broadcasting Happy Days after season 8. And then they don't broadcast the final 4 seasons.
Huh.
They actually stop at season 8. And what happened in season 8, that's when Ronnie Howard, who's of course the big director now, played Richie Cunningham. That's when he left the series.
Oh.
And then they did an additional 4 seasons without him. Okay. And not long ago, I revisited those 4 seasons, and I found it was a very different type of show. They brought in Ted McGinley, who, of course, everybody knows kills every show. That was the show Ted McGinley first showed up, and it was the first sitcom they say he murdered.
Because Ted McGinley, he replaced one of the actors on Married with Children, didn't he?
That's right.
That's right.
Quite a while, yeah. He also killed Love Boat and Falcon Crest. So, but what happened when Ron Howard left Happy Days? Ron Howard left with this other guy, Donnie Most, and they left the series. The new kind of stars, other than Fonzie, was Joanie and Chachi. They kind of moved up to be the main supporting characters. And Scott Baio, who plays Chachi, was one of the biggest teen actors in the world. Like, I mean, he was a massive. Now he's just a Trump supporting asshole. But at that time, he was like on the front cover of every teen magazine. He was a huge teen idol. And they decided, you know what, we're going to give them a shot at their own sitcom. And when they left Happy Days, literally, they had no characters left. They had Fonzie, and then they had to make like all new character for season 10. And it's ridiculous. Like, so it was problematic for Happy Days itself, but it has gone in history, the series, as being one of the worst spinoffs in the history of television. And during the pandemic last year, the first lockdown, I actually bought Joanie Loves Chachi DVD came out. And I bought it and I worked through it for the first time in my life because I knew I hadn't seen it. Well, no, not true. Here's the thing. When I was 7 years old, this show came on when I was 7 years old. I can clearly remember sitting by myself in our big living room and watching this show. But all I remember is the opening theme. I remember the opening credits, but I can't remember anything that happened in that actual episode. And I still think the opening, I don't know what you guys think, but the opening theme with Aaron Moran and Scott Baio singing in the restaurant by themselves, I still think it's a really, to me, a very powerful visual and soundscape. And as a kid, as a 7-year-old, it really stuck in my brain in a huge way. So I bought the series because I wanted to experience it last year. I wanted to see what it was all about. And is it, in fact, as terrible as its reputation in pop culture history?
I assume first season was fine and second season was just a fucking write-off.
Well, what it was 17 episodes, and they released 4 episodes at the end of the fall season, the previous season, and it aired right after Happy Days. And yes, they're not bad. They're okay. I chose the episode I did because I chose the episode Fonzie appeared on, and I did that for you guys because I wanted you to have a touchstone with Henry Winkler because everybody knows who's Fonzie, right?
Yeah,
I appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I chose that episode.
He's looking a little old there. Like, what's his character's age supposed to be?
You know, it's funny. I've tried to figure that out before, and in the first season of Happy Days, I think he's supposed to be about 18 or 19. Okay. And you got to understand, this is season 10, right? So there's no doubt about it. To me, when I watch it, he looks very cartoonish. He just looks like a big walking, talking cartoon character. And that was one of the real problems with Happy Days near the end, is that they didn't really know what to do with Fonzie anymore, because as the series progressed, like he got more and more and more cartoony as he went along. And you can really see it in that episode.
Yeah. What season did he actually jump the shark in?
That's an interesting question, Adam. He actually jumped the shark. I believe it was season 6.
Okay.
So this is 7, 8, 9. So this is 4 years later.
Oh, wow.
And it lasted another year. I mean, Happy Days. I wrote one time in an article I actually called the final 5 years of Happy Days. It was beaten worse than a Marquis de Sade concubine, like literally. Okay, that's how bad the show was flawed. They didn't know where to kill it.
I think that's an interesting point about television shows in general. Is now I think it's a very popular thing now to say we're doing the final season and we're tying up everything, and the show, if it's like a big important show, they try to wrap it up and they try to like give it some sort of a conclusion, where I think not that long ago, and even some of those shows that they did that with, like I'll use Friends as an example. Like Friends was a cash cow for NBC, and then they were like, we're done, like this is like, we all kind of want to move on and whatever. So they all decided like, okay, we're gonna advertise now, Friends is coming to an end, like it's one of the biggest shows on television, but we're closing it. So they did a very modern thing of trying to say we're going to be mature about this and like wrap up the story and end it. But then not that long later, they're just like, guess which friend is moving to the West Coast? It's Joey.
Oh, yep.
That's another terrible spinoff.
Yeah. And that's kind of something that reminded me of this, is just like, how do we take something, like everyone knows Joey. How do we take something established and set it up where it doesn't have to exist in the Friends universe? And it's like, well, what if Joey just moved? And now it's Friends, but just Joey.
I think the biggest thing about that was the Joey character was such a departure from the Joey character from Friends, where I don't know if Joanie and Chachi felt like different characters in their spinoff compared to what they were like in Happy Days.
Not at all. They really didn't. And they brought a couple of characters with them that were from the Happy Days TV series as well. Al, which is Al in season 9 of Happy Days. Al marries Chachi's mother. Okay. Al owns the restaurant that they all hung out at. So he's the big Italian guy that's upset that he wants Chachi to call him dad. Right.
Which I didn't know that he was his stepfather until I was reading
stepfather.
Online.
Now his mother, by the way, a little bit of trivia, is played by Ellen Travolta, who is John Travolta's older sister.
Yeah, when I saw Travolta,
that's pretty wild.
Like, who is it?
She has a very small cameo in Saturday Night Fever, and she was in another Gary Marshall series earlier that was not a Happy Day spinoff called Making It, which was Gary Marshall trying to do a Saturday Night Fever-esque disco sitcom, and it was not part of the Marshall universe. It wasn't part of the Happy Days universe, but yeah, he brought her back for Joanie Loves Chachi, playing Chachi's mom. Now they don't feel like now, but I just wanted to bring up an interesting bit of trivia. Do you know that actually originally they thought about giving Fonzie his own spin-off series?
That surprises me the most, is that we did a little bit of research and saw some of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
And there was like a Fonzie animated thing, and I think there was a Fonzie comic book.
Yes.
But
in the animated series, Fonzie and Richie and Ralph Malph, who were the characters that left the series in season 9, and an alien named Cupcake and a dog named Mr. Cool get in a flying saucer and fly through time and space, kind of like Doctor Who.
So Fonzie was like the player of the series, right?
He was the main character, sure.
So if they had a spin-off, it could have been fucking with Fonzie, because he'd just be picking up all the ladies. He snaps his fingers and women just appear.
Well, what's interesting, Henry Winkler turned down the opportunity for a spin-off series because he believed in the support, like the cast, like the ensemble cast that he was in, and he was like, you know what, without the rest of these characters, like the show will fail and I will fail. Henry Winkler believed in the strength of his co-stars and turned down the idea for going into a spinoff.
That's very noble of him.
That's something I picked up on this show, is because I understand, like my understanding of Happy Days, it was very much like an ensemble show. Like it was a show about a group, like a social group of friends.
Yes.
In Joanie Loves Chachi, the episode we watched opens up with them getting ready for an audition in the apartment, and they get like all lovey-dovey and like right in each other's face. And all I could think of was, like I know nothing about Happy Days and Joanie Loves Chachi, just I'm aware of it.
Mhm.
All I could think of was this works as a B story for like
Yes.
something else that's going on.
Yeah.
It does that, like this will not work as like this is what we're watching as like a very cutesy couple just like kind of kissing and
Yeah.
like I like immediately watching this I'm like this isn't really working, and then it's almost as if like the showrunners picked up on it and they're just like, all right when this drags on for about 5 seconds too long, Fonzie runs upstairs. Hey.
Hey. Now, fun fact, and you guys are like this, Joanie Loves Chachi was only a success in one country, and that was Korea.
Yeah, I saw that. South Korea.
Yes, because Chachi means penis in South Korean. So the show was literally called Joanie Loves Dick, right? Like, yeah.
So it's just a bunch of Koreans watching, being like, when does it happen?
Now, I didn't reveal this, guys, to you, but a number of years ago, I had the great pleasure of sitting down and interviewing Erin Moran, who played Joni. And she passed away in 2017. And I think I met her about 2010. And it was a lot like meeting Patty and Selma from The Simpsons. Like that's
oh no.
Oh yeah, like her voice was all wrecked because of all the chain smoking. And she was just kind of, and she had a lot of problems afterwards with drugs and mental illness. And when she first died, actually, it was TMZ first reported it was a drug overdose.
Oh.
And then it came out a couple of days later, it was cancer. And but they just assumed because she was living in a trailer somewhere.
Oh, geez.
And one of my favorite, I've interviewed, I don't know if Adam's mentioned this, but I've interviewed hundreds of celebrities as a writer. And one of my favorite stories ever during any interviews is interviewing Erin Moran and about Joanie Loves Chachi. And I said to her, I sat down and I said, so Erin, I said, and remember, I want to go back to that theme song because I just love the opening theme. I do think that's like television gold for some reason. I just love it. And I said, Erin, you and Scott, she wouldn't talk about Scott Baio at all. Like if you brought up Scott Baio, she would immediately change the subject. And I said, you and Scott sang the theme song. And I said, I just love that theme song, that opening. I said, do you still remember the words? Can you do the words? And she goes, no, I can't remember the words. Nobody remembers the words to that song. And I said, I do. And she goes, what? I do. I can sing it. And I'm like, do you want me to sing it to you? And she's like, no. Shut down. I thought we were going to have this moment where I sang the Scott Baio part, she sang the Erin Moran part. It was going to be magical. She's like, God, no.
Do you want me to sing it?
Do you guys want me to sing it? I don't know. Do you need to pay for those music rights? But no, like I do know the words. But I am proud to say I do know the words to the Joanie Loves Chachi theme song. So
I think that like the show kind of had something. Like I think them trying to make it as a band, I think like that there's something there for a show. Like I know other shows since have kind of taken that, and I know there was shows before, like stuff with the Monkees and stuff like that, like shows about a band.
Mhm.
But I think like that's the basis of a show right there, having like a boyfriend and girlfriend trying to like, do the rounds, trying to make it big as songwriters or whatever. I'm kind of surprised that this show, I guess like you were saying, like the time it was released, it came out right in the death throes of Happy Days.
It really did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it didn't catch, I guess.
The other thing is there's a few other problems. Scott Baio is an awful singer. Scott Baio released 2 albums. I own one of the 2 albums, and he's the worst. I mean, if you do a show about a song, and the other thing too, you got to understand this episode is supposed to be in about 1964. That's the year that episode's supposed to air, like supposed to be set in.
Yeah, we were looking that up too. So the show came out in this season would have been the 1983 season.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's set in the early to mid 1960s.
It's supposed to be 1964 because they did a Beatles episode the same season, and the Beatles came to America in 64.
Okay.
Okay. So it's supposed to be set in 1964, but it looks like the 1980s. And
yes.
They sound like the Carpenters. Like the music style of the time should have been like Sha Na Na or like the Ronettes or Phil Spector. The music was wrong, the look was wrong. It looked so 1980s.
Yeah.
They also have those 3 band members, mates. They have Rico and Annette, which were Chachi's cousins,
Mhm.
which, by the way, during the series, I think they're really funny. Like, I actually, if you decide to watch all 17 episodes, which
I'm shaking my head furiously back and forth.
yeah, I really actually thought they were really funny, like through the series. Like, they're just minor characters, but their comedy, although Annette is fat shamed a lot.
Oh, in this episode too, I
Yeah,
mentioned it to Cody. Like, it was
Adam was bringing that
harsh.
up.
Yeah, and it's every episode. And there's one really funny episode in season 1 where she goes to elope and get married, and it's really funny. So Rico with the stupid little fedora, because guys that wear fedoras are assholes. The joke, just in case your listeners don't know, is I've been wearing a fedora since 1989 to emulate Joey Jeremiah. But anyway, no, true story. I bought my first fedora in the summer between grade 8 and grade 9 so I could look like Joey Jeremiah. And I do have a photo of me and Pat Mastroianni, who played Joey Jeremiah, and I'm wearing his fedora and he's wearing my fedora. It's a real thing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But I think they're really funny. But I think they were really hoping the breakout star was going to be the drummer Bongo.
Yeah.
And he's so terrible. And that awful sequence where he jumps into Fonzie's arms and then they break to a commercial. And then when they come back, he's still there. It is so awkward. And Henry Winkler looks so unhappy. And the idea is he's supposed to be like a spaced out, drugged up beach guy, like surfer guy that's their drummer. And he is the worst character. And they really give him a lot of like jokes and screen time through all 17 ill-fated episodes. And hoping he was going to be like the next breakout. And really he's the worst character.
Oof.
But anyways, that's something I'd like to know more about what you guys think. I mean, I feel like Grandpa Simpson in that meme with all the kids sitting in front of him, Was this your first I'm sorry. I mean, if this is, what the Marshall universe is pretty great. It's a great place to play for all its good moments and its bads, but I feel terrible unleashing Joanie Loves Chachi on you guys for your first foray into it.
Yeah, I've never seen, like Cody said, I've never seen a whole episode of Happy Days or Joanie Loves Chachi.
I think most people our age are aware of Happy Days. I think most people our age are most of their foundation for knowledge of this is the Weezer music video.
That's what I was going to say. That's the first time I saw
Yes.
them. And my dad's explaining to me how they got Al to come back and film scenes for this. And I'm just like, really? This was a show? This was on TV?
Exactly.
Watching this, it's very interesting watching this, where to me, this had a very visible template that it was following or a format. Okay. I know Adam was kind of like, I'm not digging this. And I understand that because I'm the same way. I'm like, this feels like when you take something from the 80s, which is already 40 years old, and something that's 40 years old is trying to emulate a time period from 20 years ago. Like this just feels ancient.
Yeah.
So I think one of the weird things was it just reminded me of what are television shows that follow a formula today? Like, what are they going to look like in 20 or 30 years? And the example I brought up to Adam was like The Office and Parks and Rec and Modern Family, where all of the jokes have to be, a cutaway to a character in a hallway or a different room explaining what they meant that moment. Like it's like a faux documentary. So I didn't think the show was that bad. Like I kind of picked up on like there's a lot of elements that weren't working and they were trying a lot of stuff and there was a lot of like dead air, and the fact that you had to bring in Fonzie just to be Fonzie to like kind of fill time kind of was like you're visibly watching a show be thrown like a life preserver
in that. And remember, that's the 5th episode.
Yeah.
That's the 5th episode of the series.
Yeah, I mean, when you were speaking earlier about the fact that Happy Days went on for a few more years after a lot of people presumed it had just ended.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of a show that I used to watch. And I guess this is a pretty apt comparison because it was a show from my childhood about a time period before my childhood, was That 70s Show.
Mm-hmm.
I love, I don't watch a lot of modern sitcoms, but I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that show up because that is one of the few sitcoms from the last 25 years that I've worked entirely through.
It's good, but
It is.
towards the end, it has several main characters leave.
Just like Happy Days.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you're kind of stuck with, well, we've already established like the main character of that 70s show's name was Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
By
actor Topher Grace, the actor decided to leave the show, I think, to go do film.
Spider-Man 3 to become Venom.
That worked out.
He got the role of a lifetime to play the evil Spider-Man. He left, but you're kind of stuck as like the audience. You're watching this going, why are they all hanging out in his basement still? why is Kelso fighting with Eric's dad when Eric doesn't live there anymore?
Right?
Yeah.
The reason I watched that 70s Show so much and I loved it was because the relationship between Eric and Red reminded me so much of my relationship with my dad. Like, that's literally what it was like for me growing up in the 90s, 100%. And I related so much to it.
Maybe Happy Days was like the same way, but that 70s Show just like, it had very silly characters, but it had very relatable situations, and it was a tight show. Like it was well done.
And man, you watch those early episodes, that was one hot cat.
Yeah.
Like Mila, what's her name? Mila Kunis? Like, my God,
Mila Kunis,
yeah, she went and did Black Swan, which won the Academy Award, and Laura Prepon, who later went to Orange is the New Black after playing Carla Malta, because that was a good career.
Yeah.
And
Danny Masterson went to prison.
Danny Masterson.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It was right. Like, whatever happened to Fez?
Oh my God.
He's like famous. I don't think anyone is truly listening to the podcast, so I will openly say this, like, without fear of being sued for libel. But I'm almost positive he's like a legendary sex pest in Hollywood.
Oh, wouldn't doubt. Right.
Like, as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure it's him I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
He's shown up in some TV shows and all that stuff. And I'm sure he gets some like okay money from residuals and everything like that. But like, I remember he would always show up as like, he was one of those guys who was always dating like
the hot young actress. Yeah.
Like either hot young actresses or pop stars for like a year, and then they would leave them. But like, no one knows what this guy's done in 10 years, but like he's always just around.
I like to think that William Valderrama, is that how you say his name? William Valderrama?
Yeah.
I like to think that he is the Dustin Diamond of that 70s show.
Well, Adam, have I ever told you my Dustin Diamond story?
Oh no.
Do you want to hear my big encounter with Dustin Diamond?
Yes, R.I.P. Dustin Diamond.
Yes.
Okay, I shouldn't. This is like a way too soon story, probably.
Okay, no, I want to hear it now.
All right.
Did he just die?
Yeah, he just died, and I remember wanting to put this up on the Facebook the day he died, but I realized, like, and it's funny. This is probably the first time I publicly talked about this ever. But a number of years ago, there was a convention in Toronto. It was called Wizard World, and they were trying to. It's still a convention circuit in the States, but they were trying to compete in the Toronto market. And there was this great guy who runs it. He still works for Wizard World now. His name's Jerry Milani, and he was the press guy. And he really liked me. And I had a lot more success doing press at Wizard World than I ever did at Fan Expo. But I had some success at Fan Expo as well. And but I would show up, and Jerry would like personally introduce me to all the celebrities and say, "This is Sam Tweedle. He's great." And we would set up interviews for the weekend, right? And like some celebrities would not do interviews, wouldn't want to, and he wouldn't introduce me to those. But the ones that would, he'd go around and he'd say, "Hey, so do you want to go meet this guy?" And I go, yeah, that sounds great. And do you want to go interview this guy? All right, let's do it. And he'd make all the introductions on the first day, right? So we're walking through this one year, and Dustin Diamond was one of the guests. And he'd already lost his house and was into porn films. And you're looking at him, and he had a weird energy, like if you get it like an STD by just going and like talking to him. Like he was just the scuzziest loser. And we're standing there in the middle of this aisle, and the convention hadn't opened yet. And he introduced me to a whole bunch of celebrities, Danielle Harris. I'm trying to think a couple of Buffy actors. one of the guys from Kids in the Hall, like, you know, we were doing it, Ted DiBiase, and he introduced me to the people, and then he says, hey, do you want to go interview Dustin Diamond? And all of a sudden, as he said it, Dustin like raised his head and he looked me and he looked me right in the eye and he gave me this big smile. And I just looked at him and I looked at Jerry and I said, nah, I'm good. And I said it loud enough so he could hear me. And you could just see his face fall and he slouch.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, Sam, but if you ever see it, I can't remember who the name of the interviewer was, but you remember me and Adam had just reviewed one of his earlier projects, but you remember comedian Dave Coulier?
Oh God, I hate him so much.
Okay, you'll love this then. Well, maybe you'll love it, maybe you won't.
Oh.
Someone did an interview with him, and like, I don't think Dave Coulier's done anything very relevant in the last while. Like, I know he's on like the remake of Full House now.
He was always awful. No matter what he did, he was terrible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Like I get
okay.
Dave Coulier is an acquired taste. Like I get that some people think he's a fucking hilarious, and I get how like he just makes some people see red.
I rather watch Jeff Dunham, and Jeff Dunham's horrible.
So, I hate Jeff Dunham too.
So this was before the Full House thing. I don't know why, but someone did an interview with Dave Coulier. I don't even know what they would be talking about, because like I don't even know if he had a project out.
Mm-hmm.
And he pitched Dave Coulier a joke, and it's one of the most awkward things. It's on YouTube. You could find it pretty easy.
Okay.
He pitched Dave Coulier a joke about Dave Coulier releases a Coolio cover album.
Perfect.
And it was, and like the gimmick was, and it was just a joke. The gimmick was, it was like Coulier does Coolio.
Yes.
And it's awful. And then Dave Coulier just looks at the guy and goes, so the joke is that my last name and his rap persona sound familiar. And then he goes, yes. And then Coulier goes, I don't know if there's enough there for it. Like, I think he even lets him down gently. Like, he's like, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough legs there to really make like a sketch out of this. And the guy is just like, the interviewer loses his mind, and he's just like, fuck you. I threw you a bone by interviewing you. And it immediately becomes the greatest interview you've ever seen.
That's
and then
awesome.
Dave Coulier is just like, okay, well, I'm being verbally accosted right now. Like, this is insane.
It reminds me, there's this wonderful clip of Jennifer Lawrence. God, she's so great to watch interviewed, but she was on a red carpet and some vanity type, you know, what kind of dress are you wearing type thing. She's talking about a TV show that Jennifer Lawrence, you know, used to watch or watched, but Jennifer wasn't caught up, and she gives a spoiler away. Have you ever seen that interview?
No,
I don't think so. No.
And Jennifer Lawrence looks her right in the eye and just stops the interview and goes, "You are seriously the worst person in the world. Do you know that?" And then the woman's like trying to like continue going, ha ha ha, oh, you're so funny. So tell me, where did you get your shoes tonight? And she's like, no, you don't get it. Like, you've literally wrecked the show for me. Do you not understand? And she's like, ha, and she's like laughing it off like she thinks Jennifer Lawrence is being funny. And Jennifer Lawrence like, seriously, I hate you so much. Like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying on like this? And yeah, you know, it's, oh God, I hate that kind of journalism. I really do. Not saying that I've had my own faux pas, but you know, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to interview Dustin Diamond, and I kind of got off on letting him know that.
Well, I think, yeah, he was kind of, I feel bad because like he did just die and stuff, but like he released a book that basically was like, it just was like full of all these urban legends and like shit of like what was going on behind the scenes of Saved by the Bell.
Right.
And then I don't know what TV, it might be Stars or something like that, but there's a television station that like a cable network a couple of years ago that was making all of these like TV movies that were like dramatizations.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember when that was a thing.
And they had done a bunch, and then one of the last ones they did was they got a bunch of actors, like younger teenage actors or young adult actors, I guess, to portray the Saved by the Bell cast, and they literally just like reenacted stories from Dustin Diamond's book.
I'm sure that went off overwhelmed.
Oh,
with the rest of the
it
cast.
was insane. And then after it happened, the basically like what's his name? Like Mark Paul Gossier.
Yeah.
Oh shit, what's the guy's name who played Slater?
Mario Lopez.
Mario Lopez, and then the girl Elizabeth Berkley, because it said that they all hated each other and they all had all these stories about like all these seedy stories that if it ever came to light, like that's why they haven't spoken to each other in forever. And then after the show, after this like movie came out, they all came out and were like, just so everyone knows, we're in the middle of like relaunching Saved by the Bell through NBC, where like we play adult versions of ourselves, and like we just haven't, like we've moved on with our lives. Like no one hates each other. Like, and then the only actor that I don't think was invited to it was Dustin Diamond, because they're like, he literally just tried to like sell us all out as like we're monsters.
It's true.
Next episode, we review the Dustin Diamond porno.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So that was Joanie Loves Chachi. Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, guys. I love your podcast. Thank you so much for giving me
Thanks,
time.
Sam. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
For everyone, if you're new, go to kindofgarbage.com. You can email us at kindofgarbage@gmail.com, Twitter, Facebook, all that garbage. And you can find myself on the Trent Radio, Hey Kids Comics radio show. Sam, you're on that as well. Check out the back episodes to hear more of Sam giving amazing stories. Find me on Twitter at Presto Adam Cody.
Twitter at A Synced Word, and on this podcast.
And don't forget samtweedle.com for my latest celebrity interviews.
samtweedle.com. Go to that website. Again, Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Us.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
Cody, we're back. Guess what? We forgot to rank this one episode among our other 8. We're almost at a top 10. So I'll go first. Joanie Loves Chachi season 2, episode 1 is my very bottom of the pile, right under Out of Control. So it's my new number 9. How about yourself?
It is my new number 6. It's below Guys Next Door, but above Siegfried and Roy, Masters of the Impossible.
For our next episode, we are going to watch The Erotic Diary of Misty Monday.
Oh my
What?
God.
It's a softcore porn movie.
Is that really what you're watching?
No. We've
Oh
already
my
done
gosh.
one. We did one softcore porn by accident, and that was a Patreon episode.
Oh,
That's a really good one, though. It was literally a scam to sell beer. It's
that's
so good.
hilarious.
It's so good.